If you're playing Overwatch 1 right now with the intent of making yourself as much better as possible, give yourself that nice running head start into the next Overwatch 2 beta, heck, maybe it'll even be a permanent one. It won't be, but we can dream. One after it might be. If you're looking at it like that and saying, hey, I want to get as much better as possible, I want transferable practice, you've come to the right place. But to do that, you've got to think about what heroes are good in Overwatch 2 in Overwatch League. You've also got to think about, hey, have there been any meaningful nerfs to those heroes or buffs to other heroes that might move around the meta a bit and make practicing different DPS heroes better? And then you've also got to factor in, okay, cool, how much of these heroes been changed? Is Cassidy worth practicing when he feels like a very different hero with that flashbang change? Is Tracer maybe less useful to practice when her one-clip mechanics feel different with the weapon reduction, that sort of thing? All good questions. So let's start with what heroes we're actually seeing meaningful amounts of play in Overwatch League. We saw some Ashe, though she's a bit borderline. Cassidy, very similar boat. Seeing lots of Echo, lots of Genji. Seeing some Mei from those teams running Brawl like London. We're seeing lots of Reaper, Zarya Reaper stuff. Soldier all over the place. We've seen some Apex Sombra, not amazing, but it's there. And then, of course, we've seen Tracer, fair amount of it, and Widow in her place. Okay, cool. That's our list. So what does this look like if we jump over to the sort of value that these heroes are getting in Overwatch League? It would probably look something like this right now. We saw Genji would have been higher earlier, but he fell over time. Echo has been moving up as well. Tracer has mostly sort of gone, hey, on many map types she'll eclipse Genji because of her greater ability to maintain angles. Soldier, of course, is just an incredibly powerful hero on the beta. Reaper's seen more and more use time as the bubble Zarya comp gets more and more popular. Okay, fine, though he's by no means a absolute must pick. Fine. And then we've sort of got a Widow who's floating in here. She's the best at what she does. And then we've got a bit of a tier gap. And then some other heroes who might just fill in places. Mei and Brawl, Cassidy occasionally, Ashe on some of those other poke things like Circuit Royale when you're using an Ashe instead of an Echo, things like that. You have seen some Ashe with Echo, Diva type comps that use a Mercy and Ana, okay. And then you've seen a little bit of experimenting with that Sombra, though it hasn't been amazing. But that's Overwatch 2. And you can't practice on Overwatch 2 for Overwatch 2 right now unless you're an OWL pro. So how do you practice in Overwatch 1? Well, you have to factor in some things that are a little bit different. Let's bring our second tier list up here and compare them, because this is what I would look at in terms of how to practice things. Where Widow, yes, she's had some health changes, but practice on Widow is still good practice on Widow, and Soldier has been nerfed. So practicing Soldier right now might be a little bit less useful than it was before, in the sense of he's not going to be as strong of a hero as he is in what we're seeing in OWL. Widow is just in good shape and sort of takes space by Soldier falling a little bit there. And you might be going, okay, but that's her jumping 2 tier spots in terms of preference of practicing her right now. How does she get ahead of these other heroes? Well, here's the thing. Echo actually does play somewhat differently, feels different with that duplicate change. Still very usable. Reason that Echo's at the top of this tier, but does feel a bit different with that duplicate change, as well as you're cloning a bunch of heroes who have changed, and that's perhaps not the best practice in the world. Tracer, movement mechanics, still very much the same. Pulse bomb, still the same, but really that clip damage changing and how it interacts with armor changing, that does feel quite a bit different. That does change her a bit. Still a great hero to be practicing, but just not quite top tier ultimate. Yes, practice on her transfers perfectly the way it would before. Plus, outside of their very, very top levels of play, she's going to be harder to get value out of unless they rebuff her damage. You can see the video on that if you like. Then we've got Genji. Genji is a solid choice and really hasn't changed meaningfully, other than not having as many stuns and CC to have to play into, which kind of gives him wings, makes him a lot happier. So he would be a good one to practice, except he's sort of losing popularity as a pick out to these two. So little bit of a debate over time. Does he really make sense? Well, for most of the latter, going to be significantly better than Tracer probably, so maybe. Reaper, solid. I have questions. I have questions over Reaper's whether he's really going to stick in the meta from a longer term or not, and really isn't that hard to get practice on. But you know what? If you want to practice him in Overwatch 1, go for it. It is very transferable practice. That's why we're going to leave him in this second tier here. And then Soldier. Soldier fell pretty hard. We saw some of the stats that he did fall in his unmirrored win rate meaningfully after the nerfs there, but it's hard to completely write him out. He does a lot better in a world that doesn't constantly have the second tank there, and he's still seeing a ton of play in Owl, where they haven't had those nerfs yet, so it's hard to really know on the meta there. Let's go ahead and put him in this third tier alone. After that, there really hasn't been too much in terms of changes to Ashe. Ashe is basically the same hero. Mei has had some changes, but we're already to the bottom portion of the tier list. Similar with Cassidy. Had changes, but you can get some practice out of working on these heroes. It is worth something. Sombra has had a very meaningful changes and isn't very good from what we're seeing in Overwatch 2. You can even see articles going up about that right now. So I'd look at this and say, you don't really want to be practicing Sombra right now. You could be practicing Ashe. Maybe we should put Mei and Cassidy one tier still below Ashe there, but ultimately these are relatively low on the tier list. If you're really looking for who to be working on to get good value going into the next Overwatch 2 beta on Overwatch 1, it's probably this group of heroes in these first two tiers. Obviously, we did not cover every single hero. We're really only looking at the ones that have meaningful amounts of playtime beyond sim TPs. But what do you guys think? Do you look at this and go, no, Temporal, you're totally underestimating. People should be playing way more Soldier. Or no, Cassidy without his flash. All the mechanics are the same besides the flash. The practice on him is great. It's great, and he's going to be a good hero, that sort of thing. How do you feel? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're enjoying the content, drop a like. Consider subscribing for more Overwatch and Overwatch 2 analysis, thought-provoking content like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.